if you enjoy having a cocktail during a flight, you might want to reconsider. A new study shows that drinking on airplanes could put your health at risk. Joining us to explain more about the study is Dr. John Higgins, cardiologist with UTHealth Houston. Good morning, Dr. Higgins.
Hey, Haley.
So what exactly is this research saying about alcohol on a plane?
Well, when you get on a plane and you're cruising altitude, Haley, your oxygen saturation normally drops. So here, right at sea level, if I hooked you up to an oxygen saturation, you would measure, 98, 99, 100%. When you're on a flight, if we did that, it would be measuring about 90% in normal people. So your oxygen saturation drops down due to the altitude. Now, so that's
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and
that's normal.
Yeah, that's normal. I mean, if you were on a treadmill exercising on a plane, you would notice it. But because you're sitting there and not exerting yourself, you really don't notice it. So what they did in this study is they got about 50 young people. They were 20 to 40, no medical conditions, and they used a simulated sleep lab. So that's where they put them in a sleep lab and they kind of simulate the altitude. And then what they did is they measured their oxygen saturation as well as their heartbeat and during their night of 4 hours sleep. Then they repeated the same thing, but this time they had them have a couple of drinks, like a couple of beers, a couple of wines before that. And what they found was very interesting, Haley, that after the alcohol, their saturation dropped further down to 85%. And their heart rate jumped about 10 to 15 beats per minute. Okay. Now, these were young, healthy people, so they didn't, no
like,
problem.
Is that bad?
Right. But if you did that to someone that had a major cardiorespiratory problem, like if they had heart failure or they had coronary artery disease or COPD or another kind of major health problem, they could get into real trouble.
Okay, so if you have one of those conditions, you probably do want to avoid alcohol on an airplane. But if you are somebody who has maybe another kind of chronic condition related to the heart, like high blood pressure or something like that, should you also avoid drinking on an airplane?
Yeah, I would say, Haley, that the best thing is to avoid it. Because there are other effects of alcohol that they found in this study and others that are also concerning. First of all, when people sleep after alcohol on a plane, they don't get good quality sleep. It's very light sleep, it's non-REM, and they don't feel really rested. Yeah. Also, we know that alcohol does actually dehydrate you, and that leads to an increased rate of DVTs, the deep venous thrombosis, and pulmonary emboli. Basically people...
Which you're already at risk for when you're on the airplane.
Exactly. So people often, will take a couple and then they'll kind of go to sleep and they wake up and they can have a blood clot. So these are things that are really concerning. And also, you want to, in general, be alert and awake when you get to your destination.
Yeah.
And Haley, I don't want to hear, I've been on the plane before and they, is there a doctor on board? That's happened to me. I've been on and tried to help out, and we know that about 50% of the time it's a heart problem that is related to. So we don't want you to be one of those people, where they have to divert the plane.
So before this study came out, you had to have had suspicions that going at that altitude was probably a stressor on somebody who had heart conditions.
Oh, yes. In fact, I wrote a paper on this, Haley, where we gave recommendations for people exactly like that, who have COPD, who have really bad obstructive sleep apnea or other respiratory conditions. And certainly if someone's just had a heart attack, we actually recommend that they don't fly straight away if they've just had a stent. You've got to give time to recover from that. And certainly if someone's in bad heart failure or bad flare-up of their COPD, we don't want them flying either. So, those are important things to consider in general. You want to be in as best shape you are. And if you're not feeling well, definitely think about postponing that trip. But avoid alcohol. There are options, Haley, in addition to water. If someone really likes the taste of a beer, we have these 0% beers now, zero alcohol beer and zero alcohol wines that you could try if you really, really wanted to do that. But I would recommend Instead, go with the good hydration with things like water. And if you're a bit stressed out about flying, do some relaxation or put the noise canceling headphones out and get into your zen rather than, throw down a couple of wines.
Yeah, that's definitely the better way to relax than to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Dr. Higgins, thank you so much for joining us. I think that was really good information, and we'll put this up on clickghouston.com too, so it can serve as a reminder all summer long for people who might be flying.
Absolutely, and safe flying, guys.